and managed society type issues, or because some of these congressmen just don't even know any better. And that is, one is the electronic medical records. Mm-hmm. That's going to mean Big Brother has their mitts all over everyone's medical records. And it means everyone. It doesn't matter if you're in a public plan or if you're in a private plan. Everyone's. And the only way an electronic system like that works is if it's one gigantic system or multiple systems that are unified and can communicate.
No, it's absolutely part of the smart grid. Absolutely part of the smart grid. No doubt about it. What else you got?
The other thing is the fines. He specifically, because at first I thought this was worrisome, and then I started to think, okay, this is only a fine for businesses if they don't offer health care.
No, it's a fine for everybody. It's an additional tax. Yes, he said it. Yeah, individuals are going to be responsible. I've said it. I'm with you. I gotta jump, folks. If you didn't hear him, he said that you would be required to have health care, much the way you are required to have auto insurance. You are going to be required. And then he said there'd be a hardship waiver, which means that they're not going to get rid of Medicaid and that sort of thing. They're going to let that continue, but they're probably going to give it to less and less. And if you are on that border where, you don't want socialized medicine, you don't want Medicaid and that, but you don't want to pay, like myself, I'm not insured at the moment. If you don't want to pay for medical insurance, all of a sudden, I don't have a choice, okay? They're going to take the money anyway. It's going to come directly out of my check because the state is in control, and that's what this is. All right, let's go to Johnny in Texas. Johnny, you're on the line.
Hey, Jason. Man, I've been watching this TV thing on History Channel. It's kind of all boils into it. They're doing the Dust Bowl, right? And then they go into this deal about how the chemtrails or cloud seeding is going to help everybody. Get rain and everything. Well, does this all kind of boil into how they're trying to get at us with the chemtrails? Codex Alimentarius, you know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people have brought that up as a theory, and I thank you for the call. Are they poisoning us with chemtrails? Are these heavy metals inside the chemtrails to bring down our immune system, along with Codex Alimentarius, which is going to regulate the type of vitamins that the government allows for us to put in our bodies? After all, GMO food's the best. Better than the rest, anyway, according to the government. I don't know. But I know they're both bad news brown. It's the InfoWarrior. Back in a moment.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
All right, folks, we are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. And for the next hour, I am glad to be joined by Aidan Monaghan. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's one of the moderators over at 911blogger.com, a site which I frequent. And on top of that, he's literally done hundreds of FOIA requests regarding September 11th, 2001 to date. And without Aidan, a lot of information would not be known. He gets the real documents, posts them, and really lets the researchers decide for themselves, what this means. He also does a great job researching himself and pointing out anomalies. And I was hoping to go over this latest NRO exercise that was posted over at Blogger, but also, find out what the process is like, what have been some of the biggest FOIAs that he's received responses to, and what kind of documentation he's gotten. If you want to call in about 9/11, now's the time for the next hour, 888-201-2244, specifically on the topic of September 11th, now that we are 8 years, it's hard to believe, but 8 years from the actual event itself. Aidan, how are you?
Good to be here, Jason. How you doing?
Good. Your work is tireless. You just keep going on. Why don't you talk about some of the latest FOIAs that you've received responses for?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Currently, my current interest is in a lawsuit with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, for hopefully some of the records that might put some of the major issues of 9/11 to sleep once and for all. For example, what happened at the Pentagon. Hopefully, information that could be obtained regarding alleged phone calls made from the aircraft that day, and other records of interest to me also.
Let's talk about the phone calls for a minute, because when I was going through this latest posting on the NRO exercise, beforehand it was really vague what this NRO exercise was. We had seen mainline reports that this was John Fulton and his team from the CIA in the National Reconnaissance Office, and that it started at 8:45 in the morning or 8:46 in the morning, just as the first attack happened. Now, when you actually look at the drill, it's not around the first attack, but it certainly almost coincides with the Pentagon attack, and it happens at 9:32. Now, the official story, of course, is that the Pentagon was struck at 9:36, but multiple clocks which just suddenly stopped. They didn't stop at 9:36. They stopped at 9:32. We can get into that issue, but you read through this thing, and a lot of the quote-unquote exercise inputs, first of all, I mean, they have a faked black box recording, which I thought was pretty amazing. I mean, they record a black box recording. They actually have the dialogue right here. But they also, a lot of these exercise inputs, outside of being, blips on a screen or whatnot, they were actually phone calls where people would make frantic phone calls that a disaster had just happened, that this plane had crashed on the NRO lawn. And this kind of makes you wonder, were the phone calls that were made from these cell phones at impossible altitudes, were they part of a drill? It certainly lends credence to the possibility, does it not?
Yeah, there were a lot of overlapping events that certainly added to some confusion on that day, and the timing of them is noteworthy, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely noteworthy. Continue.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm not totally familiar with the NRO situation. You refer to a black box. I'm not sure.
Well, let me just read you some of that, because I got the document in front of me, and if people are watching over at prisonplanet.tv, they can see it. This is the PDF from Team 8, and a lot of the stuff that's become declassified lately is Team 8. That's the initial FBI investigation into 9/11. And right here, in front of me, from 9:24 to 9:32, they have a black box recording of an emergency that happens. They even give like a little scenario of what the two pilots did before they got on the plane. This is just a plane crash. This isn't a hijacking, but it's happening again right as the Pentagon gets struck. And it's right around the corner, by the way. It's outside of, I think it's supposed to happen 4.2 nautical miles south of Dulles within the NRO compound, right here. And what they do is they have this little scenario here where the guy starts to give a mayday and says, "We're hit." And meanwhile, while this is all happening, here's another card. They all have little input cards where they read, "Hello, this is John Fulton. There's been a crash of a small aircraft." We'll talk about that and much more with Aidan Monaghan. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com.
Direct to you and in your face. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
We are talking 9/11, especially these FOIAs, Freedom of Information Act requests. That, you can force the government to disclose some information. Most of the time you do get stonewalled, as is the case with Aidan and many others out there. But a lot of times they really do reveal a lot of interesting and worthwhile information. You were talking about you trying to find out the specifics of some of the calls that took place that day. Bring us through that process.
Sure. Via Freedom of Information Act requests, I'm currently trying to have the Department of Justice, FBI, produce the evidence that they have relied on to establish the existence of these phone calls, these alleged phone calls. There is confusion about whether there were cell phone calls or seatback phones, aircraft seatback phone calls, and I just think it's time for the Department of Justice to produce this source information to hopefully put some of these controversies to rest.
Well, let's talk about one of those controversies. I mean, we have the Barbara Olson phone call. Okay, Barbara Olson, a CNN correspondent who is married to Solicitor General Ted Olson at the time. And it was widely reported throughout all of mainstream media, whether you were watching Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, that she had successfully made 2 cell phone calls to her husband describing that people had been herded to the back of a plane and that hijackers had taken over. And that somehow, some of the reports had even said that somehow she was already aware of what happened at the Twin Towers, that planes had hit the World Trade Center. Now, according to David Ray Griffin, and I must be honest, I have not seen the documentation regarding this, the FBI has now said that these phone calls never took place, and in actuality, she tried to call him but was unsuccessful in doing so. What's your take on that? An
interesting discrepancy, to say the least. I I know that these model aircraft were designed to contain these seatback airphones, these GPE airphones. Whether these particular aircraft had those or not, I'll hopefully be able to find out, because I've also requested in my my lawsuit with them information that might demonstrate that the planes did or did not have these seatback airphones on board them.
Now let's talk about some of your successes over the last few years. When did you first start doing this? And in your mind, what are some of the most important documents that you have gotten the government to actually disclose?
I started about 2 years ago. I was hopefully trying to have the DOJ, FBI produce records that demonstrated that they collected evidence of aircraft wreckage from Shanksville and the